So I'm very excited today to be joined by Martin Palethorpe from Unbounded to talk about quality of mind. It's a topic that's very close to my heart, and I think it will go a long way towards answering some of the challenges we're facing at the moment when lots of the questions we're dealing with we've never faced before. So Martin, thank you for joining today. Really excited to explore these questions with you. So could you just tell us a little bit about yourself before we sort of pile into quality of mind? Tell us a little bit about your background.
So my background is the first half of my career was in the technology sector, going up the ladder, then running sales organizations, and then running an organization, a technology business, before I became an executive coach nearly 20 years ago, and worked with leaders on all sorts of topics, leaders and leadership teams. And over the last 6 years, what I realized during that time was the importance of the role of the mind in everything, in helping humans, individuals, and indeed leaders be as effective as they can be in work and life. And so for the last 5 or 6 years, we have focused very specifically on working with people, really teaching them about the mind in a highly experiential way to help them look at what's going on for them, to enable them to have mindset shift, to unlock the power of their mind.
Fantastic. And full disclosure, I have known Martin probably for about 10 or 15 years. And I have been working with Martin on what we refer to as quality of mind over the last few years. So I'm definitely understand some of Martin's journey and the potential that quality of mind or a good quality of mind can bring to your work and to your life, frankly. And since we touched on quality of mind, and I know there's a lot of ways of defining it, but could you just, for people that aren't so familiar with it, could you just explain what we mean by quality of mind in this context?
Yeah. So if you think about your mind, sometimes your mind will be low quality of mind. And low quality of mind is when you are angry or judgmental or frustrated or sad or depressed or worried or overwhelmed. It's like the quality of the mind and the way it's working is low in those examples. And high quality of mind is when it's working amazingly, when you are self-expressed or calm or clear thinking or creative, all of those aspects when the quality of the mind and the way it's working is high. So that's what we are referring to, is the quality of the way that the mind is working.
And I always go back to that line, which is the using your feelings as a measure of the quality of your thinking. That idea of your feelings are kind of betraying the quality of mind that you're having in that moment, and that's really always been very useful for me as a way of recognizing if I'm feeling anxious or cross or irritated. I recognize that sort of maybe my quality of mind isn't as high as it could be. So that's the context of quality of mind, and it sounds so simple, but it's something I use all the time when I'm talking to my clients, and that's why I asked you to come and talk to us about this a little bit. So I've got a question I'd like to put to you, which is sort of a amalgam of questions that I might get asked by my clients, and I think it's an interesting one for you to sort of explore with me, maybe, which is the idea of value pricing, which is this constant discussion around value pricing and how do you charge for value rather than time and materials. And the question might be, the client might say to me, I want to charge more, but if I put my prices up, I think I might lose my clients. So I'm hesitating and I'm not doing it, and I'm sort of not getting around to it. So I hear what you say about value pricing, but if I put my prices up, I'm going to lose my clients. And that strikes me as an amazing example of someone who's already decided what somebody else is going to think and how they're going to react, and possibly a prime candidate for exploring how their thinking might be getting in their way there. What would your reaction be to that kind of observation?
Yeah, it's a really great example, and so I'm always primarily looking at it from the psychological angle, and the psychological angle then is what's going on in the thinking of the person that's having those conversations, that's saying if I put my prices up, I'm going to lose clients. So that there's a couple of angles I might come from, and the first is to look at the deep-rooted thinking that we all exist within. Different deep-rooted thinking, but it's like there's the thinking that I'm conscious of, but there's a huge amount of subconscious, deep-rooted thinking going on that creates Martin to, or creates Andy to think the way that he does. So that the people that you're talking about will have some thinking about all sorts of things. They'll have some thinking about money. They'll have some thinking about the value they think about the service that they're providing clients. So they might have some thinking that says, we're not the best in the market, or I don't think this is worth putting our prices up for. I wouldn't pay more for this. They've got some thinking. So those are two examples whereby, without really knowing what's going on, this thinking then influences how they show up in the world and how they price. And to break through with respect to your pricing, you really need to look at the deep-rooted thinking that you've got going on and be able to shift your relationship to that thinking and learn about thought to have it stop gripping you and then limiting what's possible.
Some people call that getting out of your own way, but it's a very simple thing to say, but it's very hard to do. And there might be some people listening to what you've just said and be thinking, I get that, but this has all gone a bit deep. It's all gone a bit theoretical. In practice, if I'm sitting here listening to someone like me saying, put your prices up and have the confidence to do it, what practically might I start? How might I start unpacking my own thinking in those circumstances?
Well, what you might do is you might identify the belief systems that I'm pointing to. You might spend some time looking at, well, what are the belief systems I've got around money? What are the belief systems I've got around my agency? What are the belief systems I've got around our products and services? What are the belief systems I've got around our clients? What are the belief systems I've got around the market at the moment? Because I need to identify those. And then the question is, are they true? And how do you know? Do you know for sure they're true?
Mm-hmm.
Because actually, none of them are really true. They're all just a creation by mind.
Well, I was just going to say that kind of you talk about creating realities, and I think this is, you're creating a reality for yourself. What you described is, I know this is true because I know it is true. Well, you created that in your own brain, and that's the only place it exists. Potentially, also, though, I was just thinking here, this is also a lot of people create. They go, well, I know that they're thinking this, or I know that they're going to respond in this way. So you're creating a reality for the person you're thinking about, when you may have no real information to inform that opinion at all, and yet you start responding to the reality that you've created. So you've gone, well, I think they're going to leave if I put the prices up, because they'll go, well, you're taking advantage, or we're going to find cheaper people, or you're not great value. All of that created around an anticipated response which hasn't even been tested.
Yes. Yeah, it's a really great point, which is when we're dealing with other people, which obviously is a lot of the time, how much of the time are we creating a story in our heads about what they're going to think or how they're going to react? How much of the time? And how can we more cleverly tune into, in this example, the clients? What clients can we phone up and have a conversation about this with? How do we be more transparent in sharing our thoughts and feelings and more curious to explore things with others?
Yeah, I think that curiosity is a great point, and curiosity is quite closely aligned to bravery, I think, as well. I think it's easy for us to sit here and say, talk to some clients about it, but you have to be prepared, to be brave enough to have that conversation and be brave enough to hear what the client might say. And some of this is about just simply, potentially about avoiding facing some realities, and maybe your service isn't competitive, and maybe there are challenges around your pricing which are really manifesting your thinking about your competitiveness or something else. So conceivably, there's quite a bit of bravery involved in that curiosity, I think.
You could call it bravery, but you only need bravery when thought is in the way, right? And what do I mean by that, right? Is if I'm sat, when you operate in flow, in this sort of automatic operating, when I'm just doing something naturally, it doesn't require bravery, right? Even if you think of something that looks like it requires bravery, like a fireman going in, or fireperson, firewoman, fireman going into a building that's on fire, it looks like they're being brave, right? But actually, if you were to interview them after, they wouldn't feel like they were being brave. They would be just doing what occurs to them to do in the moment. Bravery is required when our mind is playing tricks with us and going, oh my goodness, this is going to be difficult. How on earth am I going to speak to the client? They're going to react like this, they're going to react like that, they might not want me, I might find out some terrible information, etc., etc. And actually what happens is we get a traffic jam in our head of a whole load of thoughts that then we need to somehow push through, because we up this, as you said earlier, this reality that means that we're paralyzed by the thought, which means that we have to try and be brave. Well, when we shift our relationship to all those stories in the head, there's not being brave, there's just picking up the phone and having a conversation and dancing with whatever comes up.
Perfect. And I threw that one in because I recall in previous conversations I've used the word bravery, and you've reacted in exactly that way. So it was fantastic. It was but I think when we've got to sort of level of understanding of quality of mind that you've reached, you can just pick up the phone and you're in flow as often as you possibly can be. For the rest of us, we're still, this is a spectrum, we're still on a journey, and sometimes it does still feel like you have to, when it becomes mechanical, I know you're not having a great quality of mind, but sometimes you need to kind of reiterate and just sort of remind yourself that you're talking to another human being, and what's the worst that can happen, and actually there's as many good things as bad things. Sometimes you do need to let the noise, recognize the noise at least, and accept that there's some noise there, rather than simply just go, well, I shouldn't be having noise, because you could create a whole new reality. But that's a different video, and that's another conversation, I think, for another day. But I think that last point was fantastic, which is you literally, in this case, if you're not sure why you shouldn't be charging more, if you shouldn't think about value pricing, what's behind putting the prices up, what's your thinking about your service and your service proposition, the quality of what you're doing, your underpinning value to your clients, are you manifesting that value, do the clients recognize it even if they don't say it? I think this is the stuff that goes on in your head. This is why quality of mind is so important, because all of that stops you going and asking the right questions and finding the answers to those questions with an openness and a curiosity that will inevitably actually bring you greater clarity. I think if you do turn around and ask a client and they go, Christ, I wouldn't pay more because that puts you in the bracket with somebody else, or that means I could be buying something else, or actually we've got a bit of a problem with the service anyway, that's brilliant. At least you're finding out. I mean, you're having that conversation and you're discovering that maybe your concerns, that was your gut telling you something, and there was something that was making you hesitate, and you start to explore what that is and start to address the fundamental, the so what, as Simon Sinek might call it, or the why.
Yeah. And what occurs to me as you're saying that is, how close are you to your clients? How much do you really know about what's going on for them personally, in their business? What's going on for them? What's their thinking they've got about you, about your service, about your pricing, about everything? Because the more, we talk about partnering with clients, and what does that really mean, right? How well do you really know what's going on in their heads? And part of the issue here is that generally people are making assumptions and not really, really, really close to their client's world.
Perfect. And I had a conversation this morning with a client. It wasn't talking to one of his clients. It was actually talking about speaking with his contractors. But the end of the conversation, I said, when you phone them up, because he hadn't even spoken to them and had created a reality, I said, when you phone them up with genuine interest and compassion and with all the kindness that's in you, because you'll hear what they're really thinking and what they're really feeling, and afterwards you can process that and decide how you're going to react. But don't bring an agenda with it. Just speak to them at a human level and really seek to understand how they're feeling and what's going on in their lives. It's the point you just made. It's a fantastic one, and we don't do it often enough. Sometimes we distinguish between work life and personal life, and we behave in this strange quasi business way because we think that's what we should do, or being taught or hardwired to think that way, and it's often gets in the way. And there's an awful lot to discuss in that as well, potentially, and again, maybe on another day. So I think we've got a sense of what quality of mind and being more aware of quality of mind could do for us. But if people want to understand more about this and look more deeply into it, because there's so many things I've scribbled down here that we could have spoken about, where would they go? What would they do, Martin?
So our organization is Unbounded. Our website is b-unbounded.com. They're welcome to go on there and have a look. There's a plethora of interesting blogs that they might look at, or videos to watch, and so on. If they're interested, there's a free quality of mind indicator they can take. That's a free self-assessment that helps them really look at and think about the quality of their own mind. And then, of course, we run programs. So we run Quality of Mind as a retreat. We run it as a virtual program, and we provide one-to-one specific coaching to help people with their own specific situations.
Fantastic. And I have been on the retreat and found it incredibly worthwhile, life-changing. So thank you, Martin. I think that was really helpful. If anyone wants to know anything about Quality of Mind, they now know where to go. I'm b-unbounded.com. Thank you very much.